Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I wanted to do a quick show and tell, I guess, of the knives that I got at California Custom Knife Show. CCKS was 2 weekends ago now. Yeah, so I've had these knives now for like 2 weeks, and I wanted to show them off. It's taken me a little bit to get to the point where I've got the camera on and I'm shooting some stuff, but I figured you guys might enjoy seeing what I came home with. So I'll share just kind of a brief story of, I guess, as I show these knives, how I got them, why I picked them. CCKS, if you've never been, is a really cool show. I think, frankly, it's still kind of an underrated show in terms of the caliber of makers and knives that are brought there for sale. There's a lot of heat in that room, product-wise, for how small the show is. And so, for me, it's a really fun show. It's the first knife show that I actually ever went to as an enthusiast in the hobby. I'd been to a couple knife shows before I was in it, just as a passerby, and I didn't really get it, why people were spending so much money on knives, and they were mostly fixed blades at the time. I don't even remember what that show I'm thinking of was called. But anyway, a few years ago, it's probably been 5 years now, something like that, I went to CCKS for the first time. And that time when I went to the show, what I came home with was an Olamic Wayfarer, and I was pumped about it. It's kind of a mid-tech. It was a different thing for me to get a knife of that caliber. It was the nicest knife I'd owned for sure at that point. And bought it from Eugene at the table. He's a really cool guy, one of the main guys behind Olamic, and I still like Olamic to this day. The Wayfarer is still one of my favorite models they make. Anyway, so I've been going to the show now for years, and it's become one of my favorites, even after going to Blade Show and Blade Texas and Blade West, and I guess that's kind of it. I've been to USN as well. USN is cool too, but I think CCKS often isn't looked at as being in the same realm as some of those other shows from what I've seen, and part of that's probably geography. To be in Southern California, it's a different type of travel for a lot of knife guys, but there's quite a few of us who live down here. So for me, it's 40 minutes from my front door to be parked there and going into the show, and that's really nice as well, so that makes it easy to keep going every year. But I think if this show was a couple hours away and still within a driving distance, I'd probably still go. Maybe even if it was somewhere I needed to fly to, because I love the show. It's really, really good. So the show starts out with something called Friday Night Blade Affair. I didn't go to that this year. That's for big baller collectors who are spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on single knives. Not a game I play at this point in my life, maybe one day, but that night, I mean, there's some stuff as well that goes for $1,000 and kind of up from there. I doubt there's anything under $1,000 on that night, but it's a lot of auctions. So by going there, you can enter into the auctions for these crazy pieces and get selected to be the one to, or so an auction would be, you'd be bidding on it, that happens, but then there's also lotteries where you can be selected to be the one who gets to buy the knife at its table price. And so I went to that last year. It was a lot of fun to see, but since I don't play the game, it doesn't really make sense for me to spend the time to do that and the extra money it would cost to get in for that evening. Anyway, I bought a VIP pass for the weekend. I didn't go on Sunday. I just went on Saturday. Saturday's, to me, the most important day to be there. But I had the early entry, which is 11 a.m., and I got there at 5:30, I think. Might have even been a hair earlier than that. So I was in line for 6 hours, basically, to get into the show. Which was a lot of fun because I happened to be next to Nick Rogers, Niche Designs, who's a buddy of mine. We've hung out. We road tripped to Vegas for USN together and stayed together up there. He's a friend of mine at this point. And then my buddy Evan, who's Knife Ninja EDC. And so we all hung out in line for 6 hours, which was just a good time. People next to us were cool. So that's part of the fun in a lot of ways of the knife show. But the reason I was there early was so that I could get in on some exciting stuff when I got in the door. The funny thing is, I sold a couple Koenigs to be ready for the show, and I didn't want to replace them with another Koenig from the show because I'm waiting for a Mini Arius, and there's a specific other type of build that I'm kind of hunting. And so I didn't want to use my rush in the door moment to get a Koenig. But then I was thinking I'd probably get a Waka from Shark Knife Co. They ended up not coming to the show. They had a family emergency, so that got scratched off the list. So I was like, what do I go for? So for laughs, they hand out these tickets for a couple of the booths in there for people in line, so that if you get one of these tickets, you can go and stand in that line, and the people with the tickets get served first. That means they were further forward in line. So the options are, I think, it's Strider. That's definitely one. Koenig was one. And then I think it's not Monkey Edge, Steel Flame or High-Tex or something. And then the other one is Tracker Dan, which I've always kind of made fun of because to me, the cost of those knives and the materials they're being offered, the simplicity of the builds is like at table already a little bit of a stretch. And then the secondary on them is absurd. So I was like, YOLO, I'm just going to go get one. So I did. I went and got a Tracker Dan Blood Shark. I still don't have the knife because the way that Tracker Dan works at shows is that they bring knives that aren't actually ready to sell completely. Like they have to be fitted to the sheath or they need a final edge put on them or something, which is different for me. We'll see when I get the knife. I'll do a video about it. But because I didn't go on Sunday, I wasn't there to pick it up. And so they're shipping it to me. And then Dan is off doing military stuff. And there's a family emergency for the other people who are working there, which is fine. I'm not trying to slam them for taking a little bit to ship it to me. It's honestly not a big deal. It's more funny to me that at the table I paid for the knife and then didn't get to like take the knife with me like I would at any other table at the show. And I've heard that that's fairly common for Tracker Dan knives at shows. But anyway, we'll see how I like the Blood Shark. I'm going to give it a shot because I shouldn't be laughing at it if I haven't tried it. I'll talk more about that in the video about that. Anyway, so that was my like doorbuster thing. Then after that, all that I did was enter some lotteries. So I entered lotteries for Utzler knives, which I have here. I entered lottery for Brian Brown knife, for the Jaeger custom that he brought. And then I entered, did I enter another one? I don't know if that might have been it actually. Oh yeah, I entered for American Lotto. I would have loved to get another Mini Karma. Because I had a Mini Karma and I loved it, and then someone offered me stupid money for it, so I sold it because I'm not an idiot. But I'd like to get another one at table. So I entered that, didn't win that. I didn't win the Brian Brown Lotto, but I did win an Utzler Lotto. And then I also bought at table this other knife, which I'll show you. This is a Knives Russo. So the progression was that I bought this knife at table, and Rip Knives is really cool. Danny, who's the guy behind it, I met for the first time at CCKS probably 3 or 4 years ago now. He had a table there, and at the time, gosh, this lighting is terrible. At the time, he was mostly, let me see if I can, that's a little better. At the time, he was mostly doing chef knives, like fixed blade kitchen knives, and they were gorgeous. His work was really good. But I was there hanging out with Nick Rogers at the show that day, and we were talking to him, and I remember specifically we were asking him if he had done any folders, and then he was showing us some photos of some folders he had done, and we are like, dude, you need to do more folders. Not saying I'm the reason that he's doing folders now. I highly doubt that. But he's doing folders now, and he has been the last couple times I've seen him at shows. His table is now folders. And he's got his own following that loves these knives, and I've been curious to own one and try one for a while. So he has a model called the Fury. I think that's kind of his like flagship model. Then he's got this knife, the Russo, which is really similar to the Fury in a lot of ways. But this knife to me takes many of the things that I like about Strider knives and alleviates a lot of the things I don't like about Strider's knives. So it's a really cool titanium frame lock. It's got blackened titanium hardware and clip, and then blackened titanium studs, and then this compound grind that he's done. His grinds are awesome. It's really, really nice. Man, this lighting is killing me. But he doesn't do many with a show side kind of scale build. So this one's a titanium liner on the show side with a micarta scale. I love this. When I saw him posting this exact knife on Instagram leading up to the show, I was like, oh, if I get the chance, I should buy that knife at the show. So I did. I got the chance and I bought it. I was stoked to buy this from him at table. We've chatted a lot over the years at CCKS. We also hung out a little bit at Blade Atlanta. He purchased an AVNT from our table there. He's a cool dude. And so a lot of why I bought this is because I like him as a maker, and we've had fun conversations, and I've appreciated his feedback, and he's been really cool to me. But the other part of it is that this knife is just also awesome. And it's a little atypical for me in a fun way. This isn't a drop shutty bearing knife. This knife at table, I think, if I remember, was $15.50. So pretty expensive, but it's custom, it's hand ground. I don't believe he's using any sort of CNC. I'm pretty sure he's just milling these like the old fashioned way. So to have like a really kind of hand built custom knife, to me, I feel like this is absolutely worth the table price on it. I don't even know what secondary is like on these. It might be good. It might not be amazing. I have no idea, but this knife to me was exciting enough to pull the trigger on, and I'd already kind of fallen in love with this specific build on Instagram. The compound grind is sick. It's really, really cool. So I've enjoyed this knife so far. Having it in pocket, carrying it, and cutting with it has been really fun. All right, so then the other knife that I got was I won a lottery to buy an Utzler. The first Utzler that I got was last year at CCKS. I got a Duck, and that was an exciting purchase. I got a slotted Duck in 20 CV with some Zerk accents, Zerk clip, Zerk studs, all that kind of stuff. And I was stoked about it. And I loved that knife. And kind of similar to the American, I probably would have kept it if I didn't get an unsolicited, really high offer on it. So I ended up selling that knife to a buddy who really wanted it, and I think he still has it. It was awesome. I probably, at that show, would have actually picked a Duckling based on size and carryability and feel, if at the time the Ducklings were in a better steel. I think he was doing them in CPM 154 at the time, which to me, a CPM 154 knife for like $1,000-ish at table versus a 20 CV custom knife at like 1,100 at table, the choice was plain to me. So I went with the Duck because it was 20 CV, and the Ducklings were still what I would consider an inferior steel. Now he's doing them all in MagnaCut, and he's Rockwelling them nice and high, and they're a legit steel across the board, one of the better in the sea of steels that is even being offered right now. I'm one of those people who actually really enjoys MagnaCut. There's some people out there who aren't on board with it. I'm not saying it's the end-all be-all, but a knife being in MagnaCut is an exciting thing for me. So this Duckling is in MagnaCut, and it's the only one he brought, I think, that has this 80s camo carbon inlay, or 80s fat carbon. I think it's camo carbon. Let me see if I can get this. Yeah. So this carbon material has orange and blue and green and pink in it, and it's really just rad looking, in my opinion. It's fun on a custom knife like this to have such a kind of wild inlay. But the rest of the knife is nice and muted. We've got Zerk clip, Zerk collars, Zerk studs, and everything else is just like this kind of dark washed titanium, I don't know what you'd call that, and then a stone washed user finish blade. I love the blade shape on the Duckling. It's a little bit more tanto-ish than the Duck is, and so this knife is essentially a shrunk down Duck, but there's a few little small changes that I can notice between the two of them. But yeah, this one was, in my opinion, the coolest one that he brought for the day. So the fact that I was able to win the lotto to be able to purchase it, and that it was one of the ones on the table when I won the lotto, was awesome. Really, really exciting for me. So I'm stoked to have a Duckling. I'm stoked that it's this really unique one. The action on this one too, compared to all the others on the table, was my favorite. It's just stupid drop shutty. Let me show you how, I mean, it's like, it's really, really smooth, and it just feels dialed. The action on all of his knives on the table felt really good, but this one felt like the best one to me. And so it's mine. I'm stoked that I got it. Yeah, so these are what I bought at the show. I got this and this, the Rip Knives Russo, the Utzler Duckling, and then I got the Tracker Dan Blood Shark, which I don't yet have. So that'll be coming soon. Anyway, that's how the show went for me. This one was a lot of talking. I'm sure some people are mad I didn't show the knives more than I did. I may, if I have time, do some videos on these knives by themselves. Hopefully I'll have the time to do that in the near future. But life has been crazy right now, so it's not exactly the top of my priority list. Anyway, shout out to these makers. Cool dudes. Cody Utzler, super nice guy. Each time that I met him the first time at last year's show, and then chatted with him quite a bit at this show this year again. And he's a fun dude. His wife is really nice. She's there with him. They're good people. I like them a lot. So anyway, thank you guys for checking it out. Appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next one.